Hello there guys, and welcome back to the channel. Now, as many of you know, I had very hard time trying to acquire a 6-star Scorpion, and eventually I finally did it with the help of basic arena. But Scorpion has been in the game now for quite a while, and I also fear that yet again, just like in the case of Black Cat, Scorpion has been largely kind of mislabeled as this huge amount of burst damage champion. Oh my god, look at that, we're gonna detonate like million damage, and that is not what this game needs. That's not what makes a character a good character. And all that advertisement of Scorpion's big massive amount of burst damage also came largely with these complex requirements of you being able to do these rotations, doing the special intercepts, converting your torment charges, and then doing stuff like this, basically, where you go take 20 charges, 18 torment charges, boom, 500k burst, and that's what, you know, you should do Scorpion. But here is going to be, like, you know, the hard truth of it. 90+% fights in this game don't have 500k HPs. Or at the very least now, recently, where we have started getting them in Act 8, you typically also have some sort of damage modifiers that significantly help your cause. And then Scorpion is kind of left with the idea of that you need to be very comfortable with doing this special attack intercepts, you need to know how and when charge your things, and basically you need to play as you see it here on screen. But as soon as I acquired Scorpion myself as a 6-star and started messing around with him seriously, it became obvious that that might not be the case. And in fact, that was my first question. What is the best rotation? What is the best approach how to use Scorpion in, you know, short, reasonable fights? Be that Alliance War length fight or be that Battlegrounds length fight. Obviously, I'm not going to pretend that that doesn't matter. And what we see here with those intercepts is something that you pretty much never want to do, really, except when you do go in Abyss or Labyrinth or something like that, because there's just no point. You're making life harder for yourself. So what is the best rotation for Scorpion in an average fight? Right, so let's first get down to this one. So this is going to be flat out straightforward special one spam, nothing else. No fancy things. I'm just going to be doing my medium light medium combos, sometimes maybe 5-hit combos, trying to be as aggressive as possible, keep my taunt on the opponent, and with that, hopefully Deadpool will throw his special attacks quite freely, take frequent regular amounts of moderately sized amounts of burst damage, and then we're going to go for it. So let's see how that ends up for us. So at the moment, I'm 34 hits in the fight. Wonderful. Let's go. Come on. Again, Deadpool. His healing is completely being shut down. Push him past the bar of power. Unfortunately, here he didn't want to throw it. And here he throws it. And we finish the fight in 44 seconds. That's a very important benchmark. Yeah, 44 seconds. And this Deadpool has bigger health boost than a Battlegrounds fight, because he has 125% attack and health boost, and then 300% health boost. So basically, more or less, considering that Deadpool is kind of like relatively low HP champion, this is a Battlegrounds length fight. 44 seconds is a very respectable speed without class advantage. So now let's take a look at different rotations and see whether we can do any better than that. So in some of these, I will be trying to charge in my heavy attacks. In some of these, I'm going to go for like level 2. And just basically, let's try and figure out which one is faster, which one's easier, and which one's kind of more consistent as well. Because obviously, having taunt up is also a huge advantage, even if your Scorpion is unawakened, especially if your Scorpion is awakened. But one of the things that you guys are going to notice that he doesn't really feel too free throwing that special attack initially. So there I just went in for a chill level 2. We did burst damage. We didn't try and do any fancy charges. There will be clips where I do that as well. And he's going down solidly fast as well. But again, you guys definitely will have noticed that, you know, he didn't throw his special attacks as freely because he didn't spend the entire fight having taunt active. But now we are there, and it's 54 seconds, so it's slightly slower. So let's try it again with different rotation, maybe slightly better. Maybe we're going to charge some torment charges, and we're going to see how that goes. Because obviously in all of these fights, not only how much damage you could potentially do is important, but also how well AI cooperates with you. And that is often one of the kind of critical aspects in doing fights well and quickly and making sure that they go smoothly, is how opponents' AI is reacting. So if opponent's AI works fine for you, then everything's good. Here I charge my heavy a bit, so we get 6 torments, so these are going to last slightly longer. And there I was kind of saved by that Scorpion Sense or whatever it's called. And now I do have some slightly more of these debuffs. I'm going to charge my heavy attack again. We're going to see how we do here. And we do have more debuffs now, for sure, because they last longer. We are able to stack more of them. But at the same time, because we have to disrupt our fight, it's still slower than just spamming level 1s. It's still slower than just spamming level 1s in an Battlegrounds flanked fight. So it's obviously nice. And all of these fights, aside from the first one, which I showed in Labyrinth, are with Scorpion unsynergized, like you would use him in Battlegrounds. If you introduce synergies in the mix, where he gains Fury buffs for each of the debuff active, then the results likely could be different, but also I don't think that there is such a drastic difference. So here I'm going to go in for level 2, we're going to get a proper charge here. I only had 6 debuffs though, but because we are converting torment charges, we are doing more on this burst with 6 of these debuffs. And still, we have 14 torments at this point, we have 12 debuffs, we have the Petrify. And how well are we doing? Is there going to be a major difference in a fight this length? So you have 17 debuffs, he used special attack. And this fight now takes 56 seconds. So this one was like the slowest of them all, pretty much. I think which one was... So this is the one that I showed first. So just spamming special ones basically was faster. Or you can also look alternatively that there is no major difference. But because having taunt up on the opponent at all times is a major advantage, I genuinely think that is the way to go in virtually all of the situations. Obviously, because the results are still relatively tight, I do think that depending on what utility you want to access, especially if your Scorpion is awakened, any of these rotations can work, but I also think it's very important to remind people that you do not have to try and get as many torment charges and do these charges down. It doesn't really change all that much in a fight, except for the trickier rotation you are doing with Scorpion, the more error and potential mistakes you invite. So one of the kind of like keys to success often in doing the best you possibly can is keeping it as simple as possible. And again, obviously, if you do take some hits going to level 2 to get that Petrify, if your Scorpion is awakened and regenerate from that, that's super useful. If you need to deal with unblockable special ones, then obviously you want to immediately spam level 1s to make sure at all times you can do that. And again, there will be nodes where you want to have taunt in order to be able to deal with them, like All or Nothing, for instance. Or if you need to access that Petrify in order to reverse opponent's regeneration effects or slow down their power gain, then, you know, that's what you should do. But in general, in kind of like a casual fight, I do think that pretty much the fastest, the best case scenario that you can achieve with the lowest room for error is going to be spamming the level 1s. And another thing that people asked me about well before I had Scorpion is which of the pre-fights do more damage? Because on paper, it definitely does look like that poison is weaker, right? And then shock and raptures deal basically double the amount of damage per tick than your poisons do. In reality, it doesn't really matter. because the amount of poison and shock or rupture damage that you put on Deadpool is basically negligible. They all inflict exactly the same amount of sting damage, which is the thing that matters. And those 3 debuffs were selected for a very specific reasons. See, poison is direct damage. The amount of poison damage opponents take is not affected by physical or energy resistance. Then we have shock, and shock is energy damage. The amount of shock damage opponents will take is dependent on their energy resistance. So if you're going up against champions with negative energy resistance, then shocks will do even more damage, for instance, than they would do otherwise. And the same thing is about rupture. Rupture is the only damage over time effect that considers opponents' physical resistance. So for instance, if you go up against mystic champions with negative physical resistance, like Wiccan, for instance, or whoever, then ruptures will do even more damage. But all of that is fairly negligible, because as you see, that those individual ticks stick for like 6 or 10 per tick, and that is about it. So in terms of practical fight speed, they pretty much don't leave a mark at all. But again, there is a reason Kabam set them the way they did, is so each of them kind of have their niche. The poison is kind of like the generic one that's direct, where nobody can increase or decrease it really, and that is why poison is slightly weaker. But poison also has extra healing reduction, which often can be quite helpful if you don't run max despair. Especially if you do run max despair, then vast majority of the fight you're going to have more than enough debuffs to erase the healing anyways, and then it's a matter of question what they are resistant to. But at the same time, I think that it basically doesn't make a difference which debuff you go with, and it certainly didn't reflect any kind of meaningful result difference in these fights, for instance, here. And at the same time, yeah, it's I think the selection of which of the debuffs that you use should be based pretty much solely on what immunities opponents have and which immunities you have. So the fact that shock deals slightly more damage to some champions, I don't think it's important at all. Let me know what you guys thought about this video and whether you found it helpful, and I will catch you guys soon. See ya. Hello there guys, and welcome back to the channel. So we have all the information about